Get a leg up on next year's fantasy competition on the latest edition of your daily source for everything you need to know for your upcoming domination. It's the Boston Bruins, the latest team on our league-wide top 5 fantasy breakdown.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, my fantasy fanatics? Happy Monday. Welcome back inside the lab to your daily 30-minute source for fantasy hockey news so that you can be ready to get this paper in the upcoming fantasy hockey season. Welcome back to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele Rodin. On this side of the microphone, it's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Thank you so much to the everydayers holding us down and making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, where right now new customers get $200 back in bonus bets if your first $5 wager hits. Steele, it's been a little bit of a cold streak for your boy over the weekend. Let's just say betting on baseball and things non-hockey related isn't exactly my strong suit. However, let's stick to what butters our bread. Hockey, baby. Top 5, Boston Bruins. It's not pretty. And you and I have had some difficulty at times putting together these lists. I'd say after one or two, I'd be very careful with what you're doing here with these Boston Bruins, because I just don't know, Steele. Next year might actually be even worse.
Oh, how the kingdom has fallen from the heavens. It is incredible to watch this team.
Oh, that's too bad.
Completely in disarray right now. There are some valuable pieces, but we are excited that finally, after 3 years of saying the Boston Bruins will be out of the playoffs, it finally happened. But yeah, we're going to dive deep into the Boston Bruins top 5 targets going into the season. For me, real quickly, honorable mention. I actually really did consider having this player in the top 5. Honorable mention goes to Nikita Zadorov, of all people. He actually finished the season as the second best Boston Bruin fantasy hockey-wise. His pre-rank was 395. He finished the season ranked 116. So, again, not going to jump off the page offensively, only had 22 points, but banger league beauty, 145 penalty minutes, 105 shots, 219 hits, and 107 blocks. He makes the honorable mention list. He could have been top 5, but I just had to throw Zadorov some love that way.
Absolutely. And I have 2 other honorable mentions. I think the strength of this team, if you want to call it that, is its blue line and back end. We know Jeremy Swayman struggled at times this season in his first real year as a starter. We'll talk about Swayman later in the episode, I'm sure. Honorable mention to Zadorov for sure in banger leagues. Beauty categorical fill-in. Mason Lohrei, a little bit of a sneakier ad for me. He could be a good week-to-week fill for you on your blue line. And I think there's a lot of risk with this player, but Casey Middlestat could also catch some value at times if he finds that offensive flair that he has. Tough year for him last year, but he gets honorable mention coming in at 5. And you know what, Steele? This team really did struggle at both ends of the ice last year. The power play, 4th worst in the NHL. Only the Flyers, Islanders, and Ducks had a worse power play proficiency. So that impacts a guy like Elias Lindholm's value, who I have at 5. And Lindholm was a player that only a couple of years ago, Steele, he's putting up 82 points, 64 points. And then this year, just so disappointing, along with the rest of the Bruins offense. 47 points, but however, there's still 47, 50 points, 114 hits. In some formats, this player is going to be valuable at times. I just have a serious concern about this team next year, Steele. For real, they could be even worse.
Yeah, to me, it always relies back on what they can bring defensively and also the bounce back season or what Jeremy Swayman can do. And we'll talk about him later in this episode. I also have Elias Lindholm at number 5 on my list. That's who I struggled with in place of Nikita Zadorov. I went with Elias Lindholm, a guy who, again, can jump off the page offensively. I think just from, just his first year in Boston with everything that did transpire, Swayman holding out to getting his contract, Brad Marchand getting traded at the deadline, Charlie McAvoy's injury as well. Things just weren't popping into place as usual with this organization that has built this really good culture over the last 20, 30 years. So, difficult year, but Elias Lindholm is a guy who I think if he can play on the top line, whether he plays with Pastrnak and Connor Geekie on that top line instead of Pavel Zacha, he's going to get a lot of opportunities still. The thing that struggled the most or the thing that was the most problem for the Boston Bruins was their special teams. Their power play and penalty kill were absolutely atrocious. Their power play was bottom 5 in the league, rocking at 15.22%. Their penalty kill wasn't any better. Penalty kill, I believe, was at 76% throughout the season as well. So they struggled on the special teams. That was part of the problem. That's something they're going to address in the offseason. Again, potentially maybe bringing in some other pieces to help David Pastrnak and some of those young pieces they have. But Lindholm is a guy who I think can put up 55, 60 points alongside a guy like David Pastrnak going into the season.
And perhaps this is the case of a player that has bounced around a little bit now over the last 2 seasons from Calgary to Vancouver to Boston.
Yeah.
He's 31 years old. Maybe this is just a case of the second season settling in, even though we're not necessarily buying into the rest of the Boston Bruins improving. Maybe this is a case where this player, that's a career high in hits. So you're still going to catch some value here with Elias Lindholm. We'll talk more about the rest of this list after the break, but I do want to talk about Morgan Geekie first, Steele. Before we get to our top 3 players, I got him at 4, and this is a tough one because he's had now a pretty good look in the NHL. He's not exactly, a young stud anymore, going to be 27 years old, still in his prime, obviously. But what I'm trying to get at is 73 games, he had 22 points 3 seasons ago. Then 69 games, he has 28 points. And 39 a season ago, I just don't want to say go out there and draft this player. He's still undraftable for me, Steele. I really only see the top 3 players on this list being draftable. Morgan Geekie, to me, is the perfect kind of fill-in flyer, early waiver target if he's clicking, but I'm okay to leave him alone. 57 points. I like this kid's game. I do. I could see another 45, 50 points. I would just say don't expect 57 plus, which he came in with last season.
I disagree. Just a slight disagreement here. I have Connor Geekie at number 3. I have Charlie McAvoy at number 4, and I think I'm probably in the minority when I say this, but Charlie McAvoy for me is a big question mark for what he brings to the table. I think when you look at what has happened throughout his career, he's injury prone. This guy gets injured a lot, and I'm not saying what happened last year was by any means his fault. He got pushed into the net. Shoulder injury, the surgery that he had, he gets in a bad infection, whatever it was, and he's out for pretty much the remainder of the season. Games last year, or this past season, finished with 23 points, 46 penalty minutes, 98 shots, 81 blocks, 89 hits. The thing I like about Charlie McAvoy is his peripherals are pretty decent. The year prior had 159 blocks and hits together, 133 shots. Again, this guy doesn't shoot the puck a lot for a guy who is the number 1 defenseman. I sort of relate him to a guy like Miro Heiskanen. He might be great on the ice, but fantasy-wise, sometimes it doesn't transfer over. He had a really good season 2 years ago, fantasy-wise. He was I believe he finished 60th or 65th. Like he's a 5th-round draft pick that season, but the injuries are a big concern for me. Again, how bad the team is a concern for me as well. He's never been higher. His career high is 56 points 3 seasons ago. So I'm not saying that he can't go out there and be that number 1 guy, which he has been, and play a physical game, but the lack of shots that he has, not being able to crack 60-plus points as a number 1 defenseman, that's why I'm kind of on Miro Heiskanen as well. Even a guy like Adam Fox peripherally doesn't jump off the page. I put him at number 4 because I have big expectations for Connor Geekie.
I appreciate that, and I do think you would be in the minority of taking Geekie over McAvoy.
I know I'm in the minority.
I've got him higher on the list, and I totally hear you about the injuries. Let's talk about it after the break. We'll get to the rest of our players. We're trying to get you guys prepped. Pen and pad time. So you know on every single team in the NHL who to target, who to stay away from, and what to do with them, getting your team to the top. And Wednesday, Stanley Cup final, baby. Game 1. Steele and I will have our Stanley Cup final preview, X Factors, best bets, and everything you need to know. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA finals are set. OKC, Indiana, a whole bunch of Canadian content, and every single night you can get in on the highlight-worthy performances and major momentum shifts on FanDuel. Get in on the action right now. FanDuel makes it easier to stay in on the game before tip, live, player props, trends, and all the same game parlays that you need. Fans have never had more ways to play and win big. Right now, new to FanDuel, the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it hits, 200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen. Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find our episodes. Thank you so much for holding us down. Hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review for your boys here, Flip, Livingstone, and Steele Rodin. I'm going to throw it back over to Flip. He's going to tell us, all of our listeners out there, and me included, why Charlie McAvoy deserves to be number 3 on the list, and the injury concerns that might not be so concerning going into next season.
So we could be splitting hairs here, because I think the main point, and I think you'll back me up on this, is until we actually see, I expect, I think we've said this now for every team we've spoken about for the most part, that they will make some moves. I know they have some cap space. The cap's up. This is going to be a spicy July 1 window. So you got to expect that front office to shake things up a bit. And I think what we saw from Charlie McAvoy when he's healthy over the last couple of years indicates to me, and your take about that fantasy Miro Heiskanen kind of comparison is very accurate. Maybe I'm just a lot higher on this player because when he's in there, he's a difference maker. And yeah, that was an unlucky injury, and he has been, I don't think he's played, actually, just pulling up his stats. He's never played a full 82-game season, so I might be losing the argument there. I think the upside with the peripheral, and I still, at 27 years old, I think we haven't seen him play his best hockey. So maybe I'm reaching a bit. I do really like this player, and I think, you could draw some comparisons to other players. He wasn't in the lineup for the Americans at the Four Nations because of that injury, and honestly, I think with him in there, they could have been a whole different team on the back end. However, do very well to prepare yourself for another rough year in Boston, and you don't want to be reaching. I don't want to be taking too many Boston Bruins, Steele, aside from maybe Pasta and Swayman, who we'll get to on this list.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I know for a fact that Charlie McAvoy is going to get drafted and he'll be off the board way before Connor Geekie. That's just the what's going to happen. That's exactly what, again, will transpire just because of how McAvoy has played in fantasy hockey leagues. And again, just one really good season from Morgan Geekie. I know that's going to happen. So for me, I do have Morgan Geekie at number 3. I think this was a year where we saw what is possible for Geekie and his potential. He's a big guy in the offensive zone, 6'3", 210 pounds. He's added this physical game, this physical aspect to his game as well. He had 115 hits, I believe. Sorry, 110 hits this past season. He had 150 shots on goal, career high. He's 26 years old. He just it's been a slow development, especially, again, he kind of started in Carolina. Then he was playing in Seattle. Now he's playing in Boston for the last 2 years. But he's gotten better every single year throughout his NHL career. 22 points, then 28 points, then 39 points, and now 57 points, career high, with a career high of 33 goals. He gets to play on the left wing beside David Pastrnak. I don't really care who's in the middle. I don't care who's in the middle, if it's Pavel Zacha or Elias Lindholm. He gets to play with a top 10 forward in the league right now. And even last year, Pastrnak was able to put up 90-plus points on a very bad Boston Bruins team.
106.
100-plus points. 106 points with a very bad Boston Bruins team, which had a very bad power play and a very bad penalty kill. So if that gets going as well, I'm putting a lot of stock in this kid because he's added the physical element. He's shooting the puck a lot more. Again, he's just gotten better and better every single year. So I know Morgan Geekie's going to get drafted after Charlie McAvoy, but I want you to keep tabs on him. Keep him circled on your list because this will be a good guy to draft 10th, 11th round. And his potential, the ceiling for this kid is going to be astronomical because I really like the size. I like the physicality that he's adding. The shots are increasing, like I said, and he gets to play with Pasta Man.
The pasta angle is one that is definitely something we have to consider. It's just a bit of a hard sell for me when we also look at these numbers for the Bruins, scoring the same amount of goals as the Islanders, scoring less goals than teams like the Wild and the Blackhawks, and sitting fourth last in the NHL in goals for, only outscoring the Ducks, Predators, and Sharks. That's ugly. And look, I can't wait to talk about Pasta because that is a really special player. I like your take on Morgan Geekie. It's interesting. And now you know, as we continue to break these things down, Steele, and we haven't even gotten through half the league, I'm already getting fired up for next year because I want to see what these players do. Can they translate it into a couple of seasons? Jeremy Swayman could not do that. Boom, segue. Couldn't do that in his first true season as a number one. I know for a fact he was a goaltender that went very early off boards.
Yes, he
in most
was.
leagues I was in. I would even go as far to say, after those few big guns of Shesterkin, Hellebuck, and other couple of big names, Bobrovsky perhaps, I think Swayman was right there as like that fourth or fifth goalie off most boards this year, Steele. And clearly he didn't live up to the hype. However, this is still a good goalie. Just what are you going to get out of him with the team in front of him?
Yeah, he comes in at number 2 for me as well. And we like this goaltender. I think he's going to drop. His ADP will drop for where he was getting taken last year. I think in one of our leagues, or maybe both, 4th or 5th round is what we were saw.
Yep.
Like, again, very early from what
Too
we
early.
expected him to go, for not even being under contract and kind of holding out a little bit.
Right.
Also, just being the first year getting that starting role. His goals saved above average. He was a minus 12.6, career low by an absolute mile. The year prior to that, he was a 16.4. So I think not having that security blanket, that cushion of Linus Ullmark with him, and then you have a guy like Jonas Korpisalo, who just like really no one has any faith in to get the job done or save a puck if the team depended on it. And that was just what happened this year, and sort of what fell into place for him. So again, just a bunch of unfortunate events that went on in Boston throughout the entire season. Didn't work out. Career low, 892 save percentage with a 3.11 goals against average as well. I expect him to be above 900 save percentage goaltender going in next year. I know the average save percentage over the last 5 to 10 years has dramatically declined. I believe the average this past year was a 901 or a 902 save percentage. Yeah. Jeremy Swayman is better than that. He can be.
I agree.
I'm not saying he's going to be a top 5, top 10 goaltender, but he can be a 907, 908 save percentage by the end of the season. So he comes in at number 2. We all know who comes in at number 1 with David Pastrnak. We're going to talk about him after the break, why he is still a first-round draft pick in your fantasy hockey realms and fantasy hockey drafts going into September and October. Again, like Flip said, stay tuned in for Wednesday's episode of the Stanley Cup Final breakdown. Edmonton Oilers, Florida Panthers rematch. They're hashing it back out again. We're excited to break that all down. Best bets, predictions, and X factors for the Stanley Cup Finals. All of that and more later this week. Coming up next, David Pastrnak. And once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button. Leave a 5-star review for your boys here, Flip Livingstone and Steele Rodin. We appreciate you out there. We also appreciate the Pasta Man. He's just that good. With as bad as this team was, the fact that he was able to accomplish what he did, 106 points, 43 goals, 63 assists. Just so good. And that's three straight seasons now with 100+ points. He hasn't missed a game in the last 3 seasons. Even strength goals as well. He's only had, again, this last year, he only had 9 power play goals. A lot of his action, a lot of his production is coming on 5-on-5 hockey. A career high 20 minutes and 11 seconds of average ice time this past year. Where would you put David Pastrnak in the first round? Like if we're breaking this down, you're in a let's say you're in a 10-man league. 10-man league. Where would you draft David Pastrnak? What number would he go at? Because obviously he's number 1 on this list for top 5 Bruins players, but where does he come in for the first round?
So if I'm missing out on McJesus, Draisaitl, MacDaddy, and Kucherov, to me, I wouldn't even hate on someone for taking him next after that. Maybe it's Austin Matthews you throw out, a couple
I
of
think
other
5
names.
through 8 is.
I'm going to say in my head, when you asked me immediately, I felt 7. But if you took him in the 6th or 5th slot, I wouldn't hate. If you took him before that, I'd say you missed out on too good of a player. But in that maybe 5th to 7th or 8th slot steal in the first round, this guy is the shooter. Let's be real. In terms of when you see a puck on a player's stick and you go, uh-oh, he's right there at the top of the list in terms of you can't give that guy any time of day, anywhere in the offensive zone. 151 goals over the last 3 seasons, Steele. 329 points. How about 39 power play goals, which is also something that you might want to pay attention to, perhaps going down this season once again in terms of that power play coverage for categorical leagues. He's also just a shooter, man. This guy gets game-winning goals just a couple of years ago, led the NHL with 13 game winners. So to me, this is an exciting guy. He's fun to watch. And when you take a look at the supporting cast, if maybe they go out there and they take a shot on one of these free agents that we know, like maybe a Brock Nelson perhaps, or someone to feed him the biscuit, I think those triple-digit seasons, he's still got a couple more in the tank at 29 years old.
Yeah, I agree with that. His ADP was 4.6, obviously getting taken in the 4th round. His Yahoo preseason ranking was 8. He finished the season at 8 as well. So perfect projection for a guy like David Pastrnak. I would also most likely take him at 6 or 7. I've already I'm putting my foot down with Kirill Kaprizov at 5. I think he deserves to be there as well.
I like that.
Again, you go whether you go.
I like
Austin
when you put your
Matthews,
foot down, by the way, just saying.
Appreciate it. Love that. Whether you go Austin Matthews at 6 or David Pastrnak at 6, those guys are pretty much interchangeable. Kaprizov, Pastrnak, Austin Matthews, even Cale Makar at this point.
I was going to say, I would throw Cale Makar up there.
Those 4 guys between 5 and 8 position, we're not going to hate on who you take in what order. So, again, it's whatever preference you're looking for, whatever you're trying to do for your fantasy hockey team. But I would put Pastrnak at 6 or 7. I think I would go Kaprizov at 5, and then most likely Austin Matthews at 6. Again, kind of depends on what happens this offseason for both teams, but that's the order of what I would put things in.
Got to keep your finger on the pulse, even in these dog days of the offseason, Steele. Hey, the guys in my league that win that money regularly, they spend way too much time digging into the trenches, knowing what's going on in the offseason. Obviously, once July 1 hits, you're going to want to be tuned into the pod every single day because there is going to be fantasy fallout for days to come afterwards. We'll cover it all for you here. Cup final, all the breakdowns that you need all summer long.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Hit that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. For your second listen, though, make sure you go check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. You can find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. From your boys here, Livingstone and Steele Rodin, we wish you good luck with your bets, if you have any, your favorite teams in the Stanley Cup Finals, and we shall see you back here again for Wednesday.
Peace.